Hello, Lucie and Justin. Welcome to the special series that you have graciously decided to do with Rise Up, and we're calling it Sexy Saturdays. So what are you been up to?
Well, there's been a lot of stuff, a lot going on. The restrictions here in the Czech Republic have been lifting slowly but surely. Summer's coming up and vaccinations are rolling out, so it's moving along and a lot of things are changing, and so it's been kind of a whirlwind lately.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's getting back out and about.
Yeah, I have my students back in the class, which is amazing. I love it. It's been a long time.
And what
great.
ages do you teach, Lucie?
I teach fifth graders to ninth graders.
Fifth to ninth grades.
Yes.
And Justin, what have you been doing?
Lately, I have been working a lot on things for Christfest. With all of the changes that have happened because of COVID, we have had to change the dates for Christfest as well as the location, which means that I've had to change the program about 6 times, but that's fine. It's great.
And what is Christfest?
Christfest is it's a festival for youth and young adults, and it's just a time. Usually we have Christfest for an entire week, and it's just 5 days of being able to get the youth from all over the country to gather in one place to worship, to be able to see their friends, and to be able to train them and to speak into their lives a little bit. We do seminars, we have teachings, workshops, we have special teachings for leaders. Just basically anything and everything that you can imagine, we do it at Christfest.
And where is this? Is it inside, outside? Can anyone come?
Typically it's been outside, and it's open to anybody who wants to come between the ages of 15 and I think 25.
Mm-hmm.
And we had been having it at it's kind of like a hotel in the middle of a field, and it's really nice though. There's like a lake and everything like that, and some cottages and cabins, and we would just get everyone there. But because of some complications, we're not able to have it there this year. We found a different hotel in the middle of nowhere that is a little bit smaller, but it has its own charm, and it's a larger hotel. So we're actually going to be having a lot of the program indoors, but there's still going to be a lot of portions of the program that will be outside. We're going to do a Spartan race, and we'll have like a tea tent area. I'm pretty excited about it.
So what is your involvement with it?
My involvement is mainly I create the program for the entire festival, which means that there's me and one other person. We discuss who all the speakers are going to be. We make a list of people that we would like to invite to come and teach. We also pick who the main speakers for the evening services are going to be. We contact bands. We make everything happen.
So there's live music, live worship.
Yeah. We usually have a DJ as well, and we're looking at a couple of options for a DJ to kind of get the whole festival started off with a high note. And then Lucie and I actually are going to be talking about a couple of different things at Christfest. Lucie is going to have a seminar about pornography and how steps that students can take to overcome that. And then that same day, she and I are actually going to talk about relationships with another couple, and I'm actually really, really excited about that. It's called Everything You Wanted to Know, and Some Things You Didn't About Being in a Relationship or being in marriage. And so the title is not so long in Czech, but
So do you have that prepared? Can you give us a few bullet points from what you'll be speaking about?
Sure. like, it's not entirely prepared because it's going to be a talk show format, but some things that we definitely want to cover are how to communicate in a relationship, because we have a multicultural relationship, which comes with its own unique challenges and perks. and so we're going to be talking a lot about different things that we have experienced as a couple, different fights that we've had, and
stupid ones as well.
yeah. And also, one big part that we want to talk about is our love languages, because Lucie and I have very, very different love languages.
Very different ones, yeah. And
Now,
I think we're definitely wanting to talk about how to recognize who's the one for you, and that there is actually no the one in the world that you have to find, or it's going to be a disaster. And so we will definitely want to talk about that, and more from their perspective of being single or maybe starting to date someone some of the young adults are dating. So it's going to be great.
let's go back to the love languages. I know 5 love languages. I've read that book, studied that book. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So sure.
Lucie's love language.
Mine is touch, 100%. And then I think my second one was words. And then Justin has...
Really? Words?
I think so.
Words of affirmation?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then still learning about each other.
It's good to know. Take notes,
Justin.
I should be.
And then I think Justin's are...
Just the test.
I think your number 1 is service. We thought it was words, but it is service. And then the second one is words of affirmation as well. But
maybe it's kind of hard to tell for me, because sometimes like doing the test, I sometimes score higher with words of affirmation, and other times I score higher with quality time. And for me, it kind of goes back and forth depending on what I need for that time in my life. But acts of service is definitely high up for me.
And then quality time for sure. But his like last one, it wouldn't even have to be there, is touch. He scored, I think, 0, and the other time he scored like 3
2
points.
or 3.
And so it's just not there.
It's very low on my list.
And so we are very opposite in that I require a lot of personal touch. And so Justin had to learn how to come and actually intentionally go and hug me and kiss me. And he's been great with it. He's been amazing. He learned so well, and he really does it quite often. But sometimes I need even more than that. And when he's tired or frustrated or exhausted, he doesn't want to have physical contact at all.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to give him the space and just let him be, especially when he came home from work, when he's after like a long day of talking and speaking.
Or after a conference, or during a conference. Lucie wants me to come up and like cuddle and hug her and everything. I'm like, get off me.
Give you your space.
Yes. Also for me, I don't just want to hug him because I want that my love language, but it's also how I express love and how I express that I'm proud of him, and I have to switch that into words, which I don't always remember to do. So like,
which maybe we should explain a little bit. My understanding is everyone has their own specific love language in which they recognize that love is given to them. That's how they perceive love, as if though some of those love languages are given to them. And so, but in return, they reciprocate love to other people in the forms that they prefer. And if someone else has a different love language, then they do not understand that as love. So you have to know each other's love language to know basically how to fulfill their needs, fill their tank up. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, we've each had to go through kind of a learning curve, or the learning process ourselves, where for me, I had to learn Lucie's love language. I had to learn like how to be more touchy-feely, and that was difficult. But also Lucie, and like Lucie's whole family serves, but it's kind of different when you're serving like an organization, or you're serving your church or something like that. And it's different when you're serving a person. And so there was even a little bit that she had to see with that, where like, because for me, basically, like when someone helps me out with someone, or someone serves me in some sort of way, shape, or form, it shows me that I'm not alone. And so that's what that communicates to me, and that's what I need to hear and see a lot. And so yeah.
And I think in general, people tend to think that, oh, I have to pick a person who's like exactly the same as I am, because then we will click, then we will be able to communicate well. And I think that might be really misleading, because I think on one hand, yes, you need to have a person who has the same life values and has the same direction in life. I think that's really, really important. And of course, the main ideas of how I want to live my life. If there is a person who doesn't want to have kids, and then person who really wants to have kids, then they have to figure out, like, it's probably not gonna work, because it's at one point one of them will be really, really frustrated. But personality wise and preferences wise, it's actually really good to have someone who is so different from you, because that enriches your life, but it also really pushes you and challenges you to change, to be different, to learn and to grow. And I feel that marriages that have a lot of these differences tend to be stronger, because you have to overcome the small things, and then you know how to agree on the bigger things as well, and how to compromise, and how to accept that the other person sees it differently. And so for us, that has been really important. And we sometimes laugh on how different we are. So different. Sometimes
we are very different people.
It would be really, really easier if we were a little bit more the same, but we're not.
Well, you're saying it goes beyond cultural differences.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, like the cultural differences definitely play a role. There are some things that, I mean, we've had arguments, ridiculous arguments about things that are more cultural. And then we've had very serious discussions about things that are not cultural. And I would say, like, an intercultural relationship doesn't need to be as scary. Like maybe I'm not the person to ask about this, because I also have like fully integrated myself into Czech culture. So maybe I'm not the best person to talk on this, but in my opinion, I think there's a lot more that we as humans have in common than not. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people sometimes are really scared of the other person having a different view on something, or being different, or seeing things differently, because it's not comfortable. But comfortable is not always the best. And so even in relationship, I feel it's so beneficial when you can actually say, okay, you see it this way, I see that way, we have to find a way to make this work. So what do we do? And you really have to listen. And I think that's one of the really big benefits of multicultural marriage in general, that you really have to talk about the simplest things. Like with a Czech guy, I would never have to discuss how do we celebrate Christmas, for instance, because it's very likely to be very similar. But for us, we actually had to have a conversation of how we want to spend our own Christmas, like what Czech traditions and what American traditions we want to combine.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, even things
there's other things like Easter celebrated differently.
Yes.
Thanksgiving isn't celebrated here, but it's a big part of American culture. And there's just a lot of those things that we've had to overcome and had to discuss and had to make our own way, like make our own combination. And it's fun. Like I think those things, like Lucie was saying earlier, those things have really helped to cement our relationship together. And so it's really given us a good foundation, so that when something more important comes along, like how are we going to finance a house, or what city do we want to live in, or whatever sorts of challenges and things like this that come up, we're able to discuss it and to really find a good compromise that works for us.
Yeah, sure.
Well, it sounds as if communication helps you to measure expectations. And if you know what the other is expecting, for example, not even multicultural, but each person comes from a family with different traditions and how they would celebrate holidays. And, you don't have to have cultural differences to have the need to communicate so that you better understand where each one is coming from and what their expectations are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in a relationship, both people, like as singles, everybody has expectations for what they want from life. And maybe if someone says, that they don't really have expectations, well, that is their expectations, that they don't have but everybody has expectations for what they want from life and how they want to live. And when you go into a relationship, the big thing is that you're taking what's inside of you and you're trying to put it out, and you're creating a new person, like in this relationship. And so when you communicate these things, you're transferring your expectations, they're transferring their expectations, and it creates something new. And I think that's really exciting.
So what happens when one or the other of your needs is not met? What happens?
Like if I were to view that my needs were not met, or if she were to view that my needs were not met?
Each one of you.
Well,
I think I've learned to read more. When we were talking about love languages, I think I have more of a feeling now for, oh, he just did this and he did the dishes and he cleaned this room and he did that. I have to thank him. I have to say I appreciate it. And I have to mentally recognize that he did it and it's an act of love for him. And I have to recognize it and say thank you and really be excited about it. And I am excited. I just don't always think to express it out loud. So I think I've learned, and I have a lot learning to do, but I think I've learned to recognize and notice these things and actually appreciate them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like when I see that maybe when I feel like she needs a hug or something like that, I think it's because I've been able to kind of cultivate that sensitivity to what she needs. And so I'm able to kind of foresee or I'm able to kind of step in and meet that. And granted, like I'm not perfect at it, but I'm a lot better than I was 5 years ago. And so like when you see that the other person's needs aren't met, I think the biggest thing is to have the sensitivity and also the humility to meet that person's needs in the way that they need them to be met. And when I feel like my needs aren't being met, on a good day, I'm able to communicate that and say, hey, this is how I feel, and I need you to do this, that, or the other, or I need you to make me feel loved by blah, blah, blah. And that's on a good day though. And we don't argue about that as much. No. We've had a couple of arguments, but it hasn't been terrible. And yeah, that's just being able to communicate those things. And the most important thing is to communicate them immediately. Like if you wait too long and you pull it out months down the line or something like that, well, you didn't do this when I needed it and blah, blah, blah. That's not healthy and it's not helpful to anybody. It usually just adds fuel to the fire. Yeah,
I think it only festers then. And I have the same tendency of closing off and not talking about my feelings when I'm frustrated or when I feel like my needs weren't met properly. And I also had to learn how to say, hey, actually, I need a hug right now. Or especially after argument, I need the peacemaking and I need a hug. I need some sort of physical touch to know that we are okay. It doesn't matter what we say until I have that hug. In me, we are still in conflict. And Justin just doesn't give that naturally. And especially if he's frustrated, it's like, no.
No porcupine.
But I've learned to ask, hey, I need peacemaking. I need a hug. And you can tell he's not happy about it, but because he loves me, he does it anyways.
Yeah.
And
So you have to be willing. That's key. You have to be willing. You have to love the person that you're with enough.
More than your anger.
Yeah. More than yourself, really.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You can't live in the moment. You can't live in the emotion that you are dealing with personally at the sacrifice of another person.
Yes, that is exactly. And there's one thing that I wanted to add to that too. Lucie said peacemaking, and it just kind of made me think about that. We have kind of created our own like vocabulary of how we describe the things that are like our internal world, because it's important for us to be able to share those things and to be able to communicate in a way that's clear to each other. And so we, through reading different books together and a lot of other things, we've been able to kind of create this vocabulary that we're able to use and say, hey, I need this in this sort of situation, or hey, I would like it if you didn't do that. And so it's helpful.
Yeah.
So have you ever had makeup sex?
Makeup sex? I don't think so.
I know people talk about it.
Yeah, that's definitely not.
But it's just not.
I'll be honest, it's something that I can't like it. For me, I don't work that way at all. And so, yeah, I know that some people talk about like anger sex and makeup sex and different things like that. That's unfortunately
it doesn't work for us.
So it doesn't create that bonding moment to kind of help you go forward.
When we're able to have sex normally, yes. Yeah, we have that intimacy and that closeness for sure. But yeah, like we
have to wait after an argument. I'd say we have to have the peacemaking, really know that we've dealt with the problem, we've apologized, we forgave, and even then we need some time to be able to go and be together. So,
and it's honestly usually because of me, because it, like, even though I've apologized, even though the situation's finished, I have to work through it in my head and
So you don't use it to camouflage issues or to just kind of skirt past what is of major concerns with you.
Not it. Actually, we can tell if there's been an issue or something when there hasn't been sex in a while, because it's like, what's blocking the communication, what's blocking the physical touch, what's, and so we can't use it to kind of hide how we're feeling in the relationship.
I feel like it's too deep and too intimate for us, and it has to draw the love out. And when that's blocked by something, it wouldn't be the same, I think. So it doesn't work for us, but there are couples who swear to it. So I don't know. I'm not to judge or say it's a wrong thing, but we definitely don't melt away issues with that. It doesn't work for us.
I can say that it definitely helps us to avoid issues and to work things out quicker, because I'm too much of a porcupine to be able to have sex when I'm angry with Lucie. And so it helps to make sure that we avoid those situations before they even come up.
Yeah, it brings you closer. It is like a glue in the relationship, and it's super important. But yeah, it works more of a prevention than a pill for an argument for us.
So how do you resolve arguments?
We usually need time to cool off. And I know that there's the Bible verse that you should not let the sun go down before you...
let the sun go down on your anger.
Yes. And I know a lot of couples and even friends understand it literally. And so they don't believe they should go to bed without making up. but we really can't do that because I think we sometimes have to wait throughout the night, and in the morning we are cooled off enough to talk about it in peace without the extra emotions that are extra.
I would disagree. I think we talk about it first, we get everything out,
Yeah.
and then we're able to sleep. Because if we don't say everything, I can't sleep.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
yeah, that's true.
That was one thing that we found out pretty early
Mhm.
on. We had a big fight, and I was not going to talk. I did not want to talk about it, and so I went to sleep on the couch. And even there, I couldn't fall asleep laying in the bed. I couldn't fall asleep on the couch. We ended up talking about it, and then both of us were able to fall asleep.
Because I was like done. I was like, okay, you tell me what's the problem now.
So you talk about it before you go to sleep, but then, Lucie, are you saying that it takes a while to develop a new mindset from ingesting all that new information, and so in the morning you can wake up fresh and go about your day and resolve things? Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. I think I think it depends on the argument as well, because most of the time it's true what you're saying, that we're able to talk about it and resolve it that day immediately, and it's okay. But there has been arguments which were usually it was deeper than what we were arguing about, and that's sometimes really difficult to understand in that moment because you're full of emotions and you see it from your perspective. And so then we had to actually wait till the morning, and then in the morning we were able to talk about it and share our perspective and explain our view and explain what was wrong. And so we are trying to we always try to make up and like understand each other and get it off the table as soon as possible. But especially if we have a dinner party or friends over, we just need that space, that just the two of us time to go through it. And sometimes it has to wait, and I've learned not to push it, and I also learned to really process my emotions as a woman. And I think that's important advice for anybody
wife. Who's emotional.
Yeah, because usually it's wives, but sometimes it's husbands. You have to, if the other person, if your spouse is really practical and systematical, you have to know what you're feeling and why, and what will fix it. It cannot just be, at the beginning of our marriage, I would have like an hour-long monologue about how I'm feeling, and just like, I understand what you're saying, but I have no idea what you just said. So I had to really learn to put my emotions in kind of this like box and an understandable construct that I can give to Justin. And he says, oh, okay, we can deal with that. But I cannot just blur about when I'm not sure actually myself what I'm feeling. So yeah.
I'm excited about this series, Sexy Saturdays. And I'm excited and thankful that the two of you are going to be so extremely open and available to listeners and to those who would watch on YouTube. So these will come out every Saturday in the series. What is a challenge that each of you would have for listeners from the airing of this one until the next one? What is a challenge for couples or for those who will be listening to Sexy Saturdays?
That's a really good question. I would say maybe with your partner or the person, if you're in a dating relationship or if you're married, with that other person, just talk about like what each of you needs in order to feel loved, and what are ways that help grow that feeling of being loved, and what are ways that kind of kill that feeling of being loved. I would say,
if you haven't addressed the love language topic in your relationship, I would say definitely go buy the book or just read something online or do the test online or whatever, but search for the answers for your relationship and talk about how that is going to affect your relationship, and if you need to change something in the relationship so the other person actually feels loved. If
you're book reading people, then then reading the book is a really great idea. That's incredibly helpful. And if you're not, that's totally fine. Like I said earlier, Lucie and I have been able to work out a vocabulary of our own of how to communicate our needs. And so that's essentially what you need to do with your partner, is just find that communication, find that way. For us, it was reading that book and basically learning this new way of speaking to each other, incorporating these phrases and things so that we can know how to communicate what we're feeling on the inside. And for people that aren't in a relationship, maybe to figure out for yourself what that looks like, what makes you feel loved and what makes you not feel loved, and just work on communicating that with people that are important to you in your life. And if that's, a best friend, if it's your family, those are still very important conversations to have, because that can grow your relationship and can really cement things, or it can cause deterioration. So yeah.
And I would say the important thing, we didn't really talk about it, but I think it's really important to mention that whenever you discuss your feelings, it's really important to use I statement. I feel this and that because of this. When you put it like, you do this and because of it, you are the reason for my feeling. It changes the perspective of a person, and it's much easier for the other person to accept, oh, I feel like this, I don't feel loved, I don't always feel appreciated when you don't say thank you, or when I don't feel like you actually appreciate it, and I need that to change it. So
what happens, because this could be typical, one person will read the book or listen to the audiobook and the other person shows no interest. So how would someone deal with it if they're all motivated to dive into the love language and the other, the partner was just like, have no idea what you're talking about and dismisses it? What would you do then?
Yeah, we actually just had this conversation the other day with some very close friends of ours. The important thing is to be gracious to the person that you're in the relationship with. I would say in some situations, Lucie can be more crazy about a book than I am. And then in other situations, I will be all about something and Lucie's like, whatever. And so the important thing is just to be gracious with each other. If a book really speaks to you, then that's wonderful. Use that. If you can learn from that and summarize that information for your partner, that's wonderful. If it encourages a discussion with your partner, that's even better. And so just try to have grace, summarize the information. And if the other person still is like, I don't really see it that way, that's not really for me, that's totally fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions. If that book has helped you understand things, then maybe just use that information to interpret what your partner is saying whenever you do have these deeper discussions about important ways of communication.
And I think it's also really healthy to view marriage or to have this perspective that you first need to give before you take, and you have to love and respect the other person first, because that's what God is calling you to do. And even though that person may not always reciprocate it and may not always show you love or respect the same way, it's really important that you do that first. And I think you'd be surprised of how much the other person changes because you are willing to love them or respect them unconditionally.
I think we can end on that.
That was good, wasn't it?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you both for joining today from the Czech Republic. Appreciate you both, and very much look forward to next Sexy Saturday, and who knows what that topic will be, but
yeah,
we'll lay it all out on the table. So thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.